The UK Screening Committee have just missed a big opportunity on prostate cancer. Prostate cancer is the most common cancer amongst men, and yet they've only recommended national screening for a very small group. This means many men at the highest risk, including black men and those with a strong family history, are still going to be left out. This is really frustrating because the science and medicine has moved on massively in the last few years. We now have better tests, lower risks, and clear evidence that detecting prostate cancer early saves lives. The government must listen to all sides before taking a final decision. We must prevent families from losing dads, sons, and brothers to this cruel disease.
The UK Screening Committee's decision to limit national prostate cancer screening to such a small group is a serious step backward, and Rishi Sunak is right to sound the alarm. Prostate cancer is the most common cancer among men, yet those at the highest risk, including black men and individuals with a strong family history, are once again being pushed to the margins. This isn't happening in a vacuum. In recent years, medical science has moved forward dramatically. We now have more accurate, less invasive tests, far lower risks, and overwhelming evidence that early detection saves lives. The real problem is not just slow policy making. It's a dangerous gap between scientific progress and government action. When the tools to prevent late-stage cancer are already available, continuing to limit access is effectively a decision to accept avoidable deaths. Families shouldn't be losing fathers, sons, and brothers because the system refuses to keep pace with modern medicine. Sunak's call for the government to listen to all sides is not political posturing. It's a reminder that the stakes are measured in lives, not statistics. At this point, the choice before the government is simple: take decisive action to protect men's health, or allow outdated caution to cost families what they can never get back.
Because Rachel Reeves has been accused of misleading the country. You at home, remember this excuse which gets rolled out regularly?
£22 billion black hole in the public finances left by the party opposites.
Well, tonight, a letter from the Office for Budget Responsibility, the OBR, has revealed that the £22 billion black hole simply did not exist. And the Chancellor was warned the gap would be actually much smaller. That warning, by the way, was issued way back in September, so she knew, allegedly. Downing Street, though, are also tonight denying that she misled the public, adding the country is still facing challenges. What does that mean, still facing challenges? Meanwhile, Kemi Badenoch's facing criticism after claiming that welfare spending is, quote, un-Christian, arguing that the responsibility and dignity of work was a Christian value. Well, with me now is political commentator Matthew Stadlen. Matthew, nice to see you again. Thank you for your company. First of all, is it time for Rachel Reeves to go? First of all, there was questions and concern over her claims she was an economist at the Bank of England. There was question marks over her alleged extravagant expense spending at HBOS, buying purses and perfume, whatever else. And now the big deal here, that the £20 billion black hole, whatever the figure is she plucked out of thin air, was now actually just BS. Is it time for her to go, Matthew?
So that 22 billion, hello Ben, that 22 billion pound black hole, the clip that you used, I think, I'm pretty certain comes from 2024. So you remember after the election of last year, there was that talk, a lot of talk, as you say, of a 22 billion pound black hole. That's not a black hole that's been being talked about in the last month or so. So it's important to, I think, set that straight. As far as whether Rachel Reeves will go, there's certainly pressure on her. No doubt about it. There's a lot of political heat coming in from the Conservatives, coming in from some political and perhaps as well economics commentators. But let's go back to that press conference. And this is like thorny stuff, okay? I'm a political commentator. I have to try and get to grips with economics. It's not my area of speciality, but I've spent a lot of time this evening trying to get on top of it. And it is quite thorny. Let's go back to that almost unprecedented, maybe unprecedented press conference she gave. Do you remember just a few weeks ago on the 4th of November? Where she was preparing, no doubt about it, she was preparing the country for tax rises. Now, she knew at that point that there was going to be a productivity dip, a substantial productivity dip. She also, it is true, knew by that point that that dip was compensated for by extra tax receipts in the shape of, because of inflation and because of pay rises. However, she was still running a relatively very small budget surplus at that point of about £4 billion, Ben. And if she had gone into the budget just a few days ago with a fiscal headroom of just £4 billion, Kemi Badenoch and political commentators and economics commentators, I can assure you, would have hammered her for being irresponsible and having such tiny fiscal headroom. Fiscal headroom is the extra money you have in case there's some sort of crisis or in case things don't work out as you expect they will work out. So in other words, that productivity dip of about 20 billion quid or whatever it was, I think 16 billion pounds, was very significant. And had she not had to endure that dip, that 16 billion pound predicted dip, then she could have given herself fiscal headroom without raising taxes. Now, to be fair, Ben, it is also true that some of the tax rises have gone to public spending, but we don't know what was in her mind on November the 4th. So these accusations that she was lying, I think, are probably a bit of a stretch.
All right. Well, that clip we just played, which you said was from last year, it wasn't. It was from Wednesday.
Well, in that case, I stand corrected.
So she has to go then, you think?
No, hang on. On that, if that is from Wednesday, then I stand corrected.
But why does nobody get sacked or resign anymore? It's such a sad state of affairs. We're in such managed decline that politicians commit the gravest of errors. They lie, they make things up, or they just make mistakes through incompetence. And nobody ever falls on their sword. We just mutter under our breath and say, oh, that's an outrage, isn't it? And we move on to the next scandal. It's a joke.
What I think is fair to do to criticise Rachel Reeves is to say that after last year's budget, which was a tax-raising budget, she said she wasn't going to be coming back for more. And she has come back for more. Now, that is...
Yeah, Porky. She's like Pinocchio.
Hang on. That is seriously problematic, okay? There's no doubt about it. And taxes have gone up.
Okay.
My point is that there absolutely was a forecast of a productivity dip, and the surplus she was running on the 4th of November was tiny, and if she'd got into the budget offering us fiscal headroom of just 4 billion quid, Ben, she would have been absolutely slated for doing that. So you can call for her to go.
All right, Matthew, I'm going to be in Christo Fufas, who's down the line from... Go on.
No, I was just going to, you could disagree with the budget. You could think she shouldn't have spent more money on welfare. She shouldn't have scrapped the 2-child benefit cap. I think she was right to do so. Those are all political choices, right? And you could completely disagree with that. What we're talking about here is whether she should resign for misleading the public.
Well, she should. She should resign for being incompetent. I mean, beyond anything else, she's completely incompetent. She ran the election campaign on growth. There's been no growth, absolutely none whatsoever. So you should resign just on that fact. Matthew, thanks for your company. Appreciate your contributions tonight.
There has been growth.
There's been no growth, Matthew. Come on. No, there hasn't.